Okay, so this question is slightly different from the other functions questions that usually come in the exam. In this particular question, right? Now they gave you a function. So they told you, hey, fx is a half x minus 3, right? So fair enough. That's pretty standard in a functions question. What's a little bit different is that they give you something called a domain. Now, a domain is what you are allowed to replace x with. So for this function, you are only allowed to replace x with 1, 2, and 3. It comes like somebody has lent you a function, right? And they give you some rules attached to it. So keep in mind, and that's going to be very important for the rest of the question, that you're only allowed to replace x with 1, 2, or 3 for whatever strange reason. So let's look at part 1. They told you it's f1, and notice in the brackets you have the number 1. Now 1 is on the okay list. You are allowed to put 1 into the function. So it's a okay, right? There's no tricks here. So you're going to go in the function here, and any x that you see, you are going to replace it with whatever is in the brackets as usual, which is the number 1. So 2 open brackets 1 minus 3. And you just need to, well, simplify this. A half by 1 is a half, and then you minus 3, and the final answer will be minus 2 and a half. Some people will have what? Minus 2.5. That is also correct. Okay? Now, moving on, well, take down the solution for that, and I want you all to take a look at question 2, which you probably did already. In this question, the minus 2 is not in the brackets. It's on the other side of the equal sign. So what do they want you to do in this question? Well, they want you to take the expression fx, which is a half x minus 3, and now they want you to put this entire thing equal to what? Minus 2. So you want to solve for x now. So for those of you all who are a little confused with part 2, I want you to complete it and send your answer. All you're trying to do is get x alone on one side and everyone else on the other side. In other words, you're just simply solving for x. All right, so take a few seconds, and for those who didn't submit the answer, submit something now, please. So we want to solve for x. So that means we want to get x on one side, everyone else on the other side. So we take the minus 3 and put it across. Minus 3 becomes positive 3. So now we have a half x is equal minus 1 plus 3. Well, that's 1. But we want to solve for x. This half is a secret multiply. You throw across the multiply, you get a divide. 1 divided by a half on your calculator is 2. So if you did not get 2, well, you have the working in front of you. All right. There's nothing wrong with throwing across a fraction that has a multiply. The rules are when you throw across a multiply, it goes underneath and becomes a divide. Right, so take down the work in there, and well, look at part 3. Part 3 is a very easy question. It's just stated a little bit funny, right? Like it's not stated like a normal question. But for those who want to take a shot at it, feel free, take a minute and send your answers across, please. Asking. Let's go back to where we started, where I said that in this function, you are only allowed to put in what? 1, 2, and 3. Remember, these are the x values that you are allowed to put into the function. So it's almost like a coordinate system. Like you have an x value and you have what? A y value. So anyway, let me write it down here. Remember, the function is fx is equal to half x minus 3. So let's work it out, right? Whenever you put in 1, remember, 1 is one of the OK values to put into the function. When you put 1 into the function, I know we worked this out above, you get a half minus 3, which is what? Minus 2.5. So the ordered pair here is this. When you put in 1, the corresponding value is minus 2.5. So you're putting the corresponding values next to each other in brackets separated by what? A comma. But the x goes first and the corresponding value goes after. So you have to find f2 now, because 2 is another OK value, and then you're going to do 3, right? So substituting f2 and figure out f3, and you're going to put it in brackets here. So I want to know, when you put in 2, what would the corresponding value be? When you put in 3, what would the corresponding value be? And that's all you have to do, really, right? So let me know. I will send the answers when you're finished. All right, so 2, the corresponding value is minus 2. And when you put in 3, you get minus 1.5. Okay, so check this box. Some people send the wrong answer for this one, but for the third one, I'm pretty sure you're getting exactly minus 1.5. A half of 3, a half multiplied by 3 is 1.5. Take 1.5 and minus 3, and you will get the answer that I have. All right, so double check for those who send the wrong answer for the third part. Question. All right, so this was a tricky question, part 4. Read it, and of course, if you're completely lost on what to do, I won't be surprised, and I don't blame you. It's a very strange question, so give me some feedback on part 4. All right, so here's what they're saying with this question. They want to know why this function could never be equal to 5. So let's just pretend for a minute that it is equal to 5. And let's see what happens when we put it equal to 5. So remember, the expression for fx is a half x minus 3. And we're going to put it equal to 5. I want everyone to solve for x here. We're just pretending that just for a split second that we're allowed to put it equal to 5. Quickly solve for x and at least just send that particular answer for me. And we'll make sense of that answer afterwards. Let's see. So let's solve for x here. I think that half is confusing a lot of people. So you're going to take the minus 3 and you're going to throw it across. I think that's the easiest part to do. So you get what? 5 plus 3, which we know is 8. So we're getting a half x to be equal to 8. But this is the part some people are confusing. You want to solve for x. The half is a multiply. When you throw across a multiply, you get a divide. So the whole half goes underneath. There's nothing wrong with dividing by a fraction. And I guarantee you, if on your calculator, if you type this incorrect, 8 divided by a half is 16, not 4. All right? Double check it. If you didn't get a 16, please double check it. Okay? So here's the thing now, right? For fx to be equal to 5, we are supposed to replace the x with 16. Think about in the number, to get 5, the x value has to be 16. But for this function, aren't we supposed to only put in 1, 2, and 3? So that means 16 is just not allowed when we're using this function, because 16 is not part of the domain. This is the fancy word for this is domain, but they wrote it upstairs here. Let's write it upstairs here. Show you upstairs here, right? The domain values is what you're allowed to put into the function, which is 1, 2, and 3. So 16 is not part of the domain. So you have to actually write that sentence for the examiner. When they show them the working, I mean, not the working, sorry, the working. 16 is not part of the domain. You have to write a sentence after you do the calculations. All right? So let's solve for x here. You throw across -1, you're going to get +1. So you get 3x is less than 12, right? Now, to solve for x, we have to throw across the 3. Now, the 3 is a multiply. We throw across the multiply, you're going to get a divide. So we know 12 divided by 3 is 4. Do we have to switch around the sign? I see some people switched around the sign and some people did not. What do you all think? Do you all think we need to change this from a less than to a more than? Right, Amaya, I agree with you. I think the answer is no, right? So Aaron, correct, right? Remember, you're only switching it around if you are multiplying or dividing by a negative. We are dividing by +3. We're not dividing by -3. So we're not going to switch it around. We are going to leave it the same exact way. All right. So part A is one of those questions that had no tricks in it, right? So those are the kind of questions you should be happy to see in the exam. Let me give you some advice for part B before you start. When it comes to inequalities, try to get everything with x on the left-hand side. You see how in the first question, the 3x was already on the left-hand side? I like those kind of questions because the x already on the left-hand side. In this question, my advice is to throw across the +3x, get your -3x, and the 2, throw him across on the other side. So do some rearranging to get the x on the left-hand side first, right? There are other ways to do the question, but in my experience, that particular method will always work out best for you. Oh. All right, so I know part 2 is a strange question. So let me help you all a little bit with this one here. Whenever you have a situation like this, you're going to have to break up the question into 2 parts. You notice you have 2 inequality signs, right? In that normal circumstances, what you just do, you just pay attention to this portion first. The 2 is less than 3x minus 1. And then you're going to pay attention to this portion here. But you all realize something? if you look at each of those rectangles individually, let's look at the red rectangle. We have 2 is less than or equal to 3x minus 1, right? Isn't that this same exact question we just did? And what was the answer for that particular question? Well, when we did all the working, wasn't the final answer x is more than or equal to 1? And let's look at the kind of blue one there, the kind of off blue. If you look at this rectangle, it's 3x minus 1 is less than 11. Isn't that this question we did in part A? And when we did that, wasn't the final answer x is less than 4? So what they want us to do now is represent this on the number line there. All right. So everyone take down up to there, right? I'm gonna have to clear up a little bit to do this question. Right. So take a 10 seconds. For the red solution, right? X is more than or equal to 1. So we're gonna look for positive 1. Look for positive 1 here, right? Now it's more than or equal to. Anytime it has the extra line underneath, you just have to draw a shaded circle. So over here, we're just going to draw a shaded circle, right? And we want x to be more than 1. So that means we go in this direction. This direction is more than. For the kind of off blue one here, x is less than 4. Now you notice it doesn't have the extra line underneath here. So when we draw in that circle, it's going to be an empty circle. So over here is going to be what? Empty, and we go in for less than 4. So that means we go in this way. But what we have to do, we have to combine both solutions in one. So what you want to do is ask yourself, where do these two inequalities overlap? They overlap between the 1 and the 4. So you only have to draw that piece. So when you're drawing that piece, then this is how you draw it for the examiner, right? You have to take your pencil, shade over here, and then go over here on the number line itself. Put an empty circle here, and then join those two regions, right? Let's make it a little bit darker or thicker in the exam, right? You're not drawing the top piece here, and you're not drawing the underneath piece here in your final answer. The final answer is only this piece over here. All right? And you have to make sure and don't mix up which one is the shaded circle and which one is the empty circle. How much of y'all had that on your end? It was kind of hard to send the answer across because it was a drawing. All right, so a circle is 360 degrees, right? So when you add up all the angles in a circle, you're going to get 360. So if you have 94 and 45, to find x, right? We just have to take what? We have to add up 94 and 45, and whatever you get, you minus it from 360, right? So to find x, if you had to put down some work in for the examiner, let me show you how I would write it in the exam. To find x, I would just simply say 360 minus, open brackets, 94 plus 45. And when I do that, I am getting 221 degrees. So for those who got it wrong, now just double check your working. You may have just typed in something slightly wrong on your calculator, right? But please confirm it, right? Okay. All right, so that's the answer for part 1. For part 2, right? What percentage of the students chose cricket? So the cricket is 94 degrees. What you want to do is express the 94 as a percentage out of the 360. All right, somebody just wants to see the diagram here a little bit. Tennis was 45 degrees, all right? For those who needed to double check. Right, so Samuel, correct. Boy Marie, check it back. No, there are actually two ways you can do part 3. I think I'll work it out both ways. Richard, check it back. Lucas, correct. All right, so let's work it out two ways. All right. The way that most people would work this out, right? Remember, the tennis is represented by 45 degrees. So what some people would do, they would try to figure out how much people 1 degree represents. So 45 degrees represent 40 people. Therefore, 1 degree represents 40 divided by 45. So you're finding for 1 degree first. And remember, the total circle is 360 degrees. So if 1 degree represents this portion, 360 degrees is 40 over 45 multiplied by 360 degrees. Work this out and tell me how much you get. This way is not my preferred way of doing it. I never do questions like this using this method, but I suspect some of you are using this method. And when I do this, I am getting 320 persons. So I will leave that work in there, and I'm going to do it the way I would normally do it. I just almost do this question just like how I do currency conversion, believe it or not. Like if you're converting US to TT dollars or Bayesian dollars to Guyanese dollars, it's the same concept. What you do is you draw a little cross like this. And it's two things you are considering in this question. You are considering degrees and persons. Those are the two things you are considering. And according to the question, 45 degrees, only degrees could go in this column. 45 degrees represents 40 persons. So what are we trying to do? We are trying to figure out how much 360 degrees would represent. So I'll put an X here. So 45 degrees represents 40 persons. 360 degrees will represent a different amount of people. We just don't know how much it is. So I put X. And all we have to do is cross multiply. 45 by X is 45X. 40 by 360, let's work out that. 40 multiplied by 360, and I get 14400. Let's solve for X. 45 is our multiply, throw him across, you get a divide, and let's divide that, and let's see if we get back to 320. And we do get back to 320. So either way, you get the same answer. The red method is my preferred method. Obviously, if your teacher showed you the black method here, stick with the black method, right? All right. So for the 2, you realize you're just reading off the graph here, right? For 2, the value is what? 3. Number of goals scored is 5, and the value of 5 is 2. All right, so you're just using that. I suspect everyone is everyone got that correct. Part 2. What is the modal number of goals scored by the team? Modal just means most popular. Question. The answer is actually 1 goal. Look at it. In 7 matches, the score was 1 goal. So that's like the most popular score they got. Okay? So I hope that clears it up there. Modal just means most popular. And the most popular amount of goals scored was 1 goal because it happened 7 times in 7 matches. That was the score. Right? So I think some of you said 6 now because you just looked for the biggest number here and you saw a 6. But you have to analyze what the numbers actually mean. Right? So the answer for part 2, once again, is 1 goal. Part 3, determine the median number of goals scored by the team. All right. So they're asking you to find the median. So this is going to be a strange question, but I have to scroll back up so you can see everything here. Right, so take a minute or 2 and think through that. So usually, right, when they give you a question like this, they're supposed to lay out all the scores. Now, this question is straight from the homework, right? Well, when you see me later, let's lay out all the scores from smallest to largest. Remember, when you're finding median, the scores must start from smallest and we go all the way to the largest. So let's look at this. The 0 happened how much times? 5 times, right? So it happened 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 1 occurred how much times? 7 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The 2 happened how much times? 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And we have to kind of do this for all of them, right? Now, I'm not going to list out all of them because I've seen the answer somewhere here, but that's the general gist of it. Remember, to find median, we have to use n plus 1 divided by 2, and then we have a TH over here. Remember, this formula doesn't actually give us the median. It points us to the position of the median. So who can tell me what's the value of n? If we, number n is how much? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and we go all the way. But you notice I didn't put all of them, right? But if I had put all of them and I add them up one by one, how much I would have gotten? Remember, you have 5 plus 7. This is 5 here. This is 7 plus 3 plus a next 3 plus a 4 plus a 2 plus a 1. How much would I get in all? I think I would get 25. So that means we have 25 scores in all. So let's use this formula and see what we get. So if we use this formula and replace the n with 25, it's 25 plus 1 divided by 2, right? Guys, remember when you're typing in this on your calculator, remember the top Different calculators react differently. You have to make sure and put the top in brackets, otherwise your calculator may misinterpret it. So 25 plus 1 is 26. 26 divided by 2 is 13. So we're looking for the item in the 13th position. So we start to count from the beginning. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13th. What value lies in the 13th position? 2. So the final answer is 2, right? The median score is 2 goals. So I guess I could put the word goals to be real complete. All right, so that's the answer for that particular question. All right, so according to the formula, we want to find fx, okay? F multiplied by x, and then we have to sigma it, add it up. So 5 by 0 is 0, 7 by 1 is 7, 3 by 2 is 6, 3 by 3 is 9, 4 by 4 is 16, 2 by 5 is 10, 1 by 6 is 6. So we have to add up the fx column. So let me add up this 0, everything in purple, I'm going to add it up. Let's see what I got here. 0 plus 7 plus 6 plus 9 plus 16 plus 10 plus 6. I got 54. So when I add up the top, I got 54. So I have that part of the formula down. Now we have to divide it by sigma f, just boring f. So isn't this the f row? You're going to add up everybody in this row. So 5 plus 7 plus 3. Let's add up everybody here. 5 plus 7 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 plus 2 plus 4. I'm getting 25. So when I divide these two now, 54 divided by 25, I'm getting exactly 2.16. Of course, remember, it's the mean of the goals we are finding. So they just write the word goals, right? Just to make sure you get your full mark. There are a couple of different versions of the circumference formula, but this is my preferred version. Circumference is pi multiplied by diameter. Now remember, the examiner said to use 22 over 7 as your pi button, as the value of pi, sorry. And then you have to multiply by the diameter. Now in the question here, the examiner gave you the radius. We all know the diameter is twice the radius. So that you just have to take 21 and multiply by 2. So the diameter is 42. And all you have to do is just type in this straight on your calculator. So if you're typing that straight on your calculator, look, let me do it here. 22 divided by 7. I press equal, you get this crazy number. And you don't clear your calculator. You just press right after, multiply by 42, and you will get exactly 132, right? So if you do it exactly, like how I just did it on the calculator, well, you're going to get 132 millimeters. Circumference is a distance, a regular boring distance. So since we're using millimeters, the answer will also come out in millimeters. Right, so I think you can just see part 2 underneath here. Get started. Let me scroll down, so in case you're reviewing your recording. They want you to find the area in millimeters squared, right? So we need a diagram to work this out. So I'm just going to scroll upwards to do this question and use the diagram. So let's find the area of the full circle. Let's pretend that the piece in the middle is not missing right now. How do you find the area of a full circle? The area of a full circle is pi multiplied by the radius squared. do not mix up the area formula with the circumference formula. Well, which is something a lot of students do, right? And I understand under pressure in the exam, you might mix it up. Now, remember the examiner told you we have to use 22/7 for pi. So let me write that in one time. And we are going to multiply it by the radius squared. Now the radius is 21, so 21 and squared. So let me get my calculator and let me type in that straight on the calculator here. Okay. So it's 22, I can use the ABC button. That's the fraction 22/7. Multiply by 21 and press squared. There's 8 radius squared. And I'm getting exactly 1386. So let me write that down. So the area of the circle itself is 1386 millimeters what? Squared. But I keep saying over and over that, hey, a little piece in the middle here is missing. What is the area of this shape? It's a square. So how do you find the area of a square? The area of a square is, well, side by side, so 6 by 6, which is 36. So to find the area, we have to take the 1386 and minus the 36, because the 36 is missing, right? So when you minus those two, the final area is 1350 millimeters squared. All right, for those who got it wrong, you can just let me know if you saw your error at least, or at least let me know what you was doing wrong, right? So I'll leave that on the screen for about 20 seconds. All right, so the first thing we want to do, right? Let's go back up to this question here. Let's try to figure out the volume of this shape. Now, in case, to find the volume of this shape, all we have to do is take the face area. Remember, we have the area of the face that the examiner made us work that out. And when we find the face area, we just have to multiply it by its thickness. So just remember, well, I know you have this written in your books already. The face area is 1350. So let's go down here. So let's get the volume of one disk. The volume of one of these here is the face area multiplied by its thickness. So the face area was 1350, and then the examiner told you that the thickness was 2. So let's multiply those two things. 1350 by 2. I'm getting, well, 2,700. But we're measuring volume. So the answer will be millimeters cubed, because the area was in millimeters squared and the thickness was in millimeters. So the whole thing is going to come out in what? Millimeters cubed. So that's the volume of one of those disks. Now here's the thing. How it have 1,000 here and 1,000 here, people might think that these 2,000s are the same thousands. But look at it. This one is in centimeters cubed, and this one is in what? Millimeters cubed. So apparently, you buy some of the metal, and you're going to use this metal to make these discs over here. Now, how much of the metal did you buy? According to the question, you bought 1,000 cm cube of the metal. We have two different units here. The volume of the disk are in millimeters cube, but the amount of metal you bought, they put it in centimeters cube. So we can't have two different units. It's either everybody in this question is in millimeters cube, or everybody is in centimeters cube. We have no mixtures here. That's a bad way of doing maths. So what do you think we should do? The examiner was so nice to tell us every 1 centimeters cube is equal to 1,000 millimeters cubed. So to convert this to millimeters cubed, we take the 1,000 centimeters cubed and we multiply it by 1,000. That will tell us how much millimeters cubed of metal we bought to make the discs. So, well, I can do this math. 1,000 by 1,000 is what? 1,000,000, right? So we just need to figure out how much of this could fit in that. So to figure out how much you can make, you just divide them. So you're just going to take the 1,000,000 and figure out how much 2,700 could fit inside of it. When you divide it, you'll get 37.4 discs. Now, the question is unclear, right? To me, if this is the amount of disc you can make, obviously you're not going to sell anybody 0.4 of a disc. If somebody is coming to buy a disc, they want a whole disc, right? So I think the maximum amount of full disc you can make, I will go with the 370. That would be my final answer. Right, so distance in real life. So they gave you a kind of comparison here. They said the equator in real life is 40,000 kilometers, right? So they have this in kilometers and well, the length of the string is in centimeters. Now, apparently, this 40,000 kilometers is represented by only 160 centimeters of string. So that's like the ratio over here. Then they come and tell you that in real life, instead of having 40,000 kilometers, you have 500 kilometers. So all the real life values in kilometers goes in this column. And they want to know what length of string represents that. So once again, you just have to cross multiply. 40,000 by x is 40,000 x. 160 by 500 is 80,000, and we want to solve for x. Throw across the multiply, you're going to get a divide. And of course, well, you can do this here, right? So you'll get x is equal to 2 centimeters. I know some of you would have done it different. You may have found for 1 kilometer and then proceeded to find for 500. That's another way of doing it. And it's 100% correct. Right? And yes, you can use this method even though they are in different units. It's perfectly okay. It's just that if you use kilometers here and you use centimeters here, whatever you calculate on this side will automatically always come out in centimeters. And if you calculate a value on this side, no matter what you do, it will come out in kilometers. Right, so there's a part 2 here, and for part 2, you could use the same cross, right, and you'll get through the question. So for part 2, it's the same concept as the one above here. When you cross multiply, 160 by x is 160x, 40,000 by 25. I think that's a million, if I'm not mistaken. Right, so what I did, the 160s are multiplied, so I throw it across, I get a divide, I solve for x, and then I get 6250 kilometers.